This is the voice of the New York Football Giants, Bob Papa, and you are listening to the best throughout Europe, the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast.
Welcome back, Giants fans, to the latest edition of the Big Blue UK and Ireland podcast. Proudly, as always, in association with Andy's Man Club. Lads, remember, it is okay to talk. This episode, as you can see, we are 100% British, but as always, 100% Giants. Kev is unavailable this evening and Dan is working. So for the first time since before the draft, I am back in the hosting chair and I am joined by Shane, fresh off his holidays, and Aaron, fresh off last week's discussion as we closed out the cornerbacks and special teams room, to have a look at how the Giants stack up offensively against the rest of the NFC East. Boys, how are we doing?
Yeah, it's good to get back. I know last week Kev says it's kind of like me and him are never on together. Now, just to sort of kind of quash any rumours, I have reached out to a few podcast sources to confirm if Kev's not come on because he knew I was on tonight. But unfortunately, I've not been able to confirm or deny that. So we're kind of waiting for a statement from Kev to see whether that is the case. So Kev, if you do get an opportunity during the show at any point, if you'd like to confirm or deny those rumours.
Aaron, how you doing?
Yeah, good. Back from live drafting in Belushi's for the Scott Fish Bowl, so pretty happy with my team. Missed out on most of the Giants. Did manage to avoid taking Saquon Barkley because he went number 1 overall, so I was able to land Bijan Robinson. But I did pick up a late round QB called Daniel Jones. Don't know if you've ever heard of him.
Why have you done that? In the second fantasy league that you've got, haven't you got him in our dynasty league as well?
Yeah, he runs a lot, gets lots of points.
To be fair, Aaron says I've drafted no Giants, and I was like, "Fucking hell, that's a good team." And then he says I've drafted Daniel Jones.
Yeah,
I suppose the important question is, what's Belushi's like, seeing as it is our venue for the meetup in October?
Yeah, well, it gets rave reviews from me because having spent 3 hours on a bus to London plus 25 minutes on the Jubilee line in stinking heat, it was beautifully air conditioned. So and a beautifully cold pint was there to meet me. So yeah, loads of space, loads of screens. I'm not quite sure which area. We were down in the dugout, which is their kind of basement, and that had lots of booths with big screens and all sorts of stuff. I don't think we'll have any problem getting good quality audio and video footage of the game in there. And food was good enough, and drinks were nice. Not plenty of selection on as well, so I'm sure we'll all be happier.
Brilliant. Obviously, that is just over 3 months away as it stands, with us being halfway through July and the meetup being towards the tail end of October. However, we'll get into the main bit. Now, before we begin, obviously, if you are watching this on YouTube, X, or on Facebook, please do get involved in the comments. It always helps us out and it keeps the chatter rolling, especially with an episode like this where it's very subjective. I'm going to explain what we're going to be doing and how we're going to do it, but it would be great to see you all involved. Like the video, subscribe if you aren't already, hit the notification bell to know when we go live. Normally it's a Wednesday, but as the season comes into fruition, we're going to have 2 shows a week, so it might be a bit here, there and everywhere depending on timing. So make sure you get that in now, and make sure, all you audio listeners, that you rate us on your podcast platform of choice. Aaron, how many stars do they need to give?
5 stars.
5 stars. Thank you very much. Now, with the rookies reporting into camp yesterday and the vets due to join them on Tuesday, the July the 22nd, there is not a lot of news right now, other than Jackson Dart throwing an absolute piss missile to a man on the back of a jet ski, which I think we can all agree was a drop. It's definitely a drop that was on target. Depending on how our receivers improve, he might have to get used to that.
Yeah, I don't understand why that guy dived. It hit him straight in the hands and he decided to jump off the jet ski. What's that about?
Now, Shane, do you have any tangents for us this early, or are you saving them for later?
No, I've got one.
You've got one?
Do you remember the tank train? We renamed this segment the Tangent Train. Well, we're staying on the train theme, but it's tangent. Mayo, it's for you. So I don't think I've asked you this question before. What jersey are you wearing?
Yeah, so this one, you've seen me in this jersey, but you didn't know I was there. So this is the jersey. I put London on the back because it was London in 22. So it's just London in 22. So yeah. Brandon London was quite impressed that I had his name on the back of my jersey, I didn't have his number. So, yeah, he did sign this in Munich as well, but I don't think the pen works, so it doesn't exist on the actual thing. But I'd had a lot of beer by that point. I wasn't really bothered.
And roll to keep the tangent train going along on the tracks. What other Giants jerseys have you got? Because I don't think I've ever asked you that before either.
Yeah, so I've got a Javon Holland number 8 jersey because I modified it with duct tape. I have quite a random collection. So I've got a Odell Beckham Jr. Pro Bowl jersey, the white one when the NFC were in white. I've got a very, very old Ron Dane jersey in Reebok thing that's too small. I can't fit in it anymore. I've got a LeVar Arrington jersey that's signed that I bumped into him for when the then Washington Redskins played at Wembley one year, so I happened to have that jersey with me, and he signed it. And I've got a 72 OC Imanura jersey, Pro Bowl one again. I got signed in 22 by the man himself by hanging it over the side of the pitch, and he happened to be in front of me, and he came up and signed it, and he signed the program behind me as well from Super Bowl 42. So those are the jerseys I've got. I've got 3 more coming that will make an appearance in the near future. So watch this space.
Are you done? You finished?
I think that's me. Yeah.
For now. Shane, my turn to go off on a tangent. Mine's more the time travel tangent, I think. Last week you asked us a question. What was your, what positional group? Now we've done all the positional groups. Did you think was the strongest and the weakest? And obviously you listened back to the episode and you saw that we all had different answers, mainly because it's good for content and it's good for the fans. However, you have free reign now. So what are your thoughts then?
Yeah, so I'd probably say the ones I was thinking, you all mentioned them. So I probably would go with safety, what Kev says in terms of strongest. And you could incorporate that into the D back room in general, depending on how the likes of Ty Banks steps up and what if Drew Phillips can take that next step. And then the weakest, I was torn between 2, to be honest with you. Wide receiver was one I was debating because, like Dan said, you take Neighbours out the equation. Yeah, I like Slayton. I'm a massive Darius Slayton guy, always have been. But he's not going to be that kind of guy who's going to be touching 1,000 yards. And then it's just, if you look at the depth behind the 3 main starts, I mean, Jalen Hyatt is your 4th guy. You don't really know what you've kind of got with him. You're going into this 3rd season. It's pretty much a make or break season for Jalen Hyatt. And then behind him, it's kind of just a bunch of special teamers and kind of journeymen. And then the other weakness I was kind of debating, and there's a good kind of reason why I wouldn't chose it, but it would have been linebacker, like you said, Craig. And the reason I wouldn't have chose it because I can see Carter playing some snaps at linebacker at some point. So I just think that probably gives me a little bit more confidence in terms of the depth behind the linebackers. I was quite impressed with Darius Musa at times last year, to be honest with you. And this front office and coaching staff are quite high on Musa as well. So I think kind of when you look at the depth beyond the starting positions, wide receiver and linebacker, I think wide receiver is probably the kind of the biggest concern going forward. And then probably another strong one, actually, that I don't think anyone mentioned. I don't know if Mayo might have mentioned it. I don't think so. But running back. I think, you got Tyrone Tracy, you got Devin Singletary. You're hoping you're going to get something from Scatterbo as well this year, and kind of probably more the back end of the season. But I feel quite confident in that running back group, to be honest with you. Like, I'm not looking at thinking, we don't run the ball too often. Like, I think we can get that fine balance between, 60-40 in terms of passing plays and running plays.
Cool. It was obviously your question. I can't remember what the tangent was that you had me go off on at the beginning. Oh, it was the Dexter Lawrence chat, wasn't it? It was the Dexter Lawrence chat. Obviously, we're obviously waiting to try and see where he ranks in the top 100, which is going as slow as ever. I think they're only on like mid-70s at the moment. So
we're waiting for any Giant in the top 100.
I was going to say I ain't paid any attention. Has there been any Giants yet?
No, not yet. I think we're all in agreement that Dex will get in, Neighbours will get in, and outside of that, it's probably maybe Andrew Thomas on Aura. But
yeah, I thought if Brian Burns was going to be, he was in there last year, but if Brian Burns was going to be in there, I think he would have been in the 80s and 90s. I don't think he's going to crack the top 60, which is kind of what's coming up. So yeah, I think we've missed. Sorry, how are they doing it this year? They're doing it on Twitter every day, or X every day. They're releasing sort of every weekday. They're releasing 3, and then I think the top 10 are going to be a show on NFL Network or whatever. But they're doing 2 or 3 every day in the middle of the day, Monday to Friday, basically. A little sort of 3-minute video, and I think maybe they're grouping them all together on a program, but that's the first announcement is on X.
The videos are on YouTube, but it seems to be a few days behind.
Yeah.
It's a bit shy. I used to enjoy the episodes, to be fair, and listening to the players talk about why they chose a certain player and that. Tangent Train's in full motion now. Has anybody watched Quarterback yet?
Not yet.
The first 5 episodes, I think I've done.
What's the thought? What's the early thoughts? What's the Mayo review so far?
I've enjoyed it. It's a nice mix of the three guys on there. Kirk Cousins looks a little sad, and seems quite boring. Joe Burrow's probably the coolest guy I've ever known. So I think that comes across as I don't think there's a guy out there who will watch it and not want to be Joe Burrow, and I don't think there's a girl out there that won't want to be with Joe Burrow. So I think something for everybody in that sense.
Shout out to Jared Goff, who names his top 10 quarterbacks of all time and pops Eli in there as well. Did see that clip earlier. Right, are we tangented out for the moment? I don't even know if that's a word, but
we're on a tangent time out.
Any alliteration for this tangent shite is gonna feed families, isn't it? Right. Let's move along to the comparisons. So the way that this is going to work is we're going to have a look at the different offensive units for the Giants, Eagles, Cowboys, and Commanders, aka the NFC East, and rank them from 1 to 4. It is an objective ranking. We do not know anybody else's ranking. They could be consensus. If they are consensus, then we will have a discussion. If they're not consensus, we will talk about why we have ranked them where they are, and then we will have an argument as to why we think the others are wrong in their analysis and ranking. So we should probably start off at the top with the quarterbacks. And I'm going to do the ranking first, or my ranking first. Then we'll pass over to Shane and then to Aaron to do his. For those who are watching, you can see the lineups on the screen there. For the audio ones, we will read them out as we go through. So for the Eagles, I have them as the number 1 ranked quarterback room. Obviously, they have Jalen Hurts, Tanner McKee, and Kyle McCord. As long as the offensive line stays strong, I don't really think that Jalen Hurts is flappable. I think as long as he's not put under pressure, he's pretty much one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the league. If you put him under pressure, he does have a dip in metrics and does seem to panic a little bit. Maybe not as much as another quarterback that we're going to talk about in a second, but he has enough chemistry with his weapons kind of to ad-lib if needed. Tanner McKee and Kyle McCord aren't the best depth, so any long or season-ending injury will probably hurt their chances to win consistently. But I think the Eagles, for me, are number 1. Number 2, I've got the Commanders. Jaden Daniels lit up the league in his rookie season thanks to his off-script play style and his accuracy. And he has Marcus Mariota and then Josh Johnson as his backups. So Mariota as a backup is quite a good one to have. I think he's probably the strongest backup of the 4, just because of the fact that he is a veteran and the regression won't be massive, and it should still allow the Commanders to be competitive. Then I've got the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, Joe Milton, and Will Grier. Injury and inconsistency has started to plague Dak for a few seasons, and his early career interceptions have crept back in. But he's now getting a bit of help as Jerry Jones has decided that a running back room actually is something that they need to look at. And obviously they've got a new wide receiver. Milton is a decent backup, but raw and unproven with a good arm. And then I have the Giants ranked at number 4. Obviously, Wilson, Winston, and Dart, we've spoken enough about those. Mainly just got them down the bottom because it's unknown. We have no idea how they are going to do under Brian Daboll. I think Brian Dable's scheme might not be the best fit for Russell Wilson. I don't know about Jameis Winston. Obviously, Jackson Dart, he's got the opportunity to mould. It should be an upgrade on 2024, but we're kind of pinning our hopes on an aging Russell Wilson or a rookie Jackson Dart, if that is what it comes to. So I just can't rank it any other way. Shane, how about you? How have you ranked this?
Yeah, so I've got Eagles, Commanders 1, 2. I think got the Giants at 3 with the Cowboys at 4. I just think that Prescott's kind of starting to decline, and he's getting worse each season, really. Like, if I'm completely honest, I mean, if you kind of look at the stats last year, Russell Wilson played 11 games. Dak Prescott played 8 games. I'm not including Russell Wilson's wildcard game. Wilson threw for more touchdowns, less interceptions, and nearly 1,000 yards in just 3 extra games. So for me, I just think that Russell Wilson has got that kind of veteran experience in terms of kind of been there, done it all, seen it all that Dak doesn't have. Yeah, okay, Dak's been in the league and that kind of went on trajectory upwards, and he's now coming downwards, much like Wilson. But Wilson's he's got a Super Bowl to his name, so like instantly, I just give him a little bit more credit for that, to be perfectly honest. And then I kind of think I didn't really take into much consideration the backups, because I just think it's going to be those guys that start: Wilson, Hurts, Prescott, and Daniels. But I think when you do kind of look at the backups as well, I think I much prefer our backups over the Cowboys backups as well. Like I would have rather have Winston or Joe Milton. I think it's a bit of a coin toss, in all honesty. I might wake up on a Tuesday and fancy Winston and wake on a Thursday and fancy Milton. But then if you look at Dart and Grier, I'd much rather have Jackson Dart, and the fact that we've also potentially got our future franchise quarterback that Dallas don't have if they were to move on from Dak, be that via cut, trades, injury, whatever might happen to him. So that's why I've gone with the Giants at 3 and the Cowboys at 4.
That's understandable. I just want to bring up Holty makes a good point here. I mean, this is a good point really across the entire offense for the Cowboys, but they do have a new head coach over there, so obviously that is a consideration. Aaron, how does your quarterback depth look?
Yeah, so I'm in agreement with Shane. So I have Eagles 1, Commanders 2, Giants 3, and Cowboys 4. And I think there's an argument that the Commanders have the best QB room. I think over the Eagles. I think Jalen Hurts, until he's kind of found out, and he doesn't seem to be, and they keep his tush push in there, which has kind of helped them keep drives alive and this, that, and the other. But Jaden Daniels kept a lot of drives alive on fourth down. I think the Commanders had an all-time fourth down conversion rate like it's never been seen before in the league, and may never been seen ever again. It may just be a one-year fluke. But I think it's very close between those two QB rooms, and again, I think Marcus Mariota is the best of all the backups if you want to use that to push it over. But I've gone with Hurts just because of the kind of provenness, and in the same vein as Shane, I think Dak, I think, is on the decline. He could still have a 5,000-yard, 40 touchdown season in him, and I wouldn't be surprised if it is. But I also think Russell Wilson is due a bit of a bounce back with a better cast around him. His receivers were terrible last year, and one of them's in Dallas now as well. So I think, and then obviously, I think Jameis Winston is the best backup out of all of the teams in our division. And yes, you know what you get, but he is a journeyman quarterback that will fill in. And you know, if you have to play 4 games, you might go 2-2 with him, but it's not 0-4, which we've seen in previous years for our kind of backups coming in, unless you're Tommy DeVito on the Magic Run. And then obviously Jackson Dart is the real wild card in there, and that if he is the franchise QB, then you could argue that would put us at 1 right now with a veteran and the rookie protege to kind of build him. But I think, like I say, at the moment, I definitely wouldn't put us higher than 3. It is an interesting conversation with us in Dallas, and we've touched on that. I think the other thing that has helped Dallas a lot, and we'll probably talk about a lot more next week, is that they've had such an impressive defense that has generated a ridiculous amount of turnovers, like on a turnover run that's rarely seen in the league. And the offense obviously benefits from that with short fields and quick changes and all that kind of stuff. And I'm not sure their defense and cast and personnel, they've brought a lot of the same people back as their starters from a season that was a drop-off. I think they had 3 seasons of 12 wins and then dropped down to a 7-win season. And I think the 7-win season is probably more likely where the Cowboys will end up again this year.
Shane, you made a comment there about, Jackson Dart versus Will Greer. I mean, I guess it's probably safe to say you'd take him over Kyle McCord and Josh Johnson there. Would you have him over Tanner McKee and Joe Milton, who are obviously the Eagles and the Cowboys main backups as it stands?
I'll probably have him over Tanner McKee. I don't know about Joel Milton yet, just because I feel like Joel Milton has kind of shown a little something in the NFL, whereas Jackson Dart hasn't as of yet. So I'll be taking Dart over Milton on basically a projection. So it's probably one of them. I'll take Milton just because he has made some throws in the NFL, but that could easily change after just a couple of games of seeing Dart. I don't know if you mentioned it as well, but obviously if the listeners want to bang in their rankings that they have, we can bring them on the screen for each position as we go along as well.
Yep, absolutely. Feel free to get them in the comments. I mean, we have had a few on here. Steve saying the Cowboys look the worst out of that list, and it's not even close. I did flip-flop between those two. I think it's quite easy to just have the Eagles and the Commanders as 1 and 2, and then just flip-flop between the two. I think a lot of mine's based more on not knowing as opposed to trying to project it too much. We've never seen what Wilson, Winston, or Dart can do under a Brian Dable offense. You look at Hurts, you look at Daniels, and you look at Prescott. We've got tape on all of those in their current situation. I did even flirt with having the Commanders at the top, especially seeing as they retained Cliff Kingsbury, and I think that he seems to find a way to make Daniels tick and kind of get him in the best position to succeed. Aaron, what do you think it would take this season for Daniels to do to jump Hurts?
Yeah, so I think so. Obviously, the sophomore slump is what you always talk about with quarterbacks, and do they get found out because they can only operate a simple scheme, and people work out how to target that scheme, and then does he overcome that? So he will have, if someone will figure him out a little bit better and think, but then does he have that next step? We saw that with Lamar Jackson, and Lamar Jackson faces the most blitzes by any quarterback comfortably because they know when you can get him off his spot and under pressure and man coverage, that was how he made some mistakes. But he's kind of only an average quarterback when he's under pressure, where he's an elite quarterback when he is not pressured. Same with Jaden Daniels. If you can find out what his weakness is and if he overcomes that, he literally is he could be a top 3 QB in this league as that dual threat QB. So yeah, and justifies his position in last year's draft. I think we all knew it was a really good QB class, and he was not by any stretch the last QB to come off the board in that discussion. So I think Steve mentions it in the chat about rings. I think rings are kind of how you judge a career, but who's the best in the NFL right now? I think Daniels can jump ahead of Hurts with a really good, strong season that shows that he's in that MVP conversation. Probably won't win an MVP because you never get it the year you're probably due it. You tend to get the credit the second time you have a good season after a really good year. But it's that sophomore slump. If he overcomes that and finds a way to keep the offense on track, and if he takes the division crown, I think that's the other measure as well. If Washington can win the division, I think it will largely be down to the extra pieces they've gone and given Jaden Daniels and him living up to the hype.
Indeed. We spoke off camera before this about who was going first for each of them, and unfortunately Shane found out that he gets to go first later on offensive line, but I feel like I've done him dirty by also making him go first and talk about one of his previous loves as well, because we're moving on to running back, and Shane, your ranking is up first.
Being shafted here, I tell you. This is a conspiracy this season, I tell you. So running back. So number 1, I got the Eagles. Number 4, I got the Cowboys. 2 and 3, I found really hard to kind of choose between who I fancied at 2 and who I fancied at 3 in terms of the Giants and the Commanders. Steve, sore subject. We'll leave it to that for now. Kieran, no need. Look, you can have all your old line fun in a little while. This is about the running backs for now. So 2 and 3 with the Giants and the Commanders, I found really hard. And in the end, I opted to go for the Giants at 2 and the Commanders at 3. And the reason being, I mean, if you kind of look at the 2 main guys, so Robinson for Washington last year, 928 yards, 10 touchdowns, Eckler 456 4 touchdowns. Tyrone Tracy, 839 yards, 5 touchdowns. Singletary, 437, 4 touchdowns. So there's not much between him in terms of the yards and the touchdowns. But the reason I went for the Giants over Washington was simple matter of age. Both Singletary's younger than Eckler, Tracy's younger than Robinson, and that was just kind of what I had to use in the end. You know, like you say before, when we've done like kind of draft rankings, you've got to separate them somewhere when you kind of feel that neck and neck. So for me, just because the youth's on their side, so to speak, I went with the Giants at 2 and the Commanders at 3. But you know, if someone says to me, "Well, I've got the Commanders at 2 and the Giants at 3," I wouldn't be like, "Oh, that's a little bit steep." I think Eagles are a clear number 1 because of who they've got as their running back one. And in terms of the Cowboys, I actually quite like their running back room in many ways. I mean, it'll be interesting to see what Aaron has to say. But like Javonte Williams, when he came, I was a huge Javonte Williams fan. And I do genuinely hope he can bounce back from his ACL injury that he kind of had. He said this year was the first year that he feels like he's back at where he needs to be. Obviously, picks it up at Denver. So, you know, I do think Javonte Williams could. It wouldn't surprise me if Javonte Williams ends up being running back 2 out of all these teams here. But yeah, so Eagles 1, Giants 2, Commanders 3, Cowboys 4.
Aaron, you are up next. I'm just going to very quickly just run through the rooms just for context on this. So Eagles, Saquon Barkley, AJ Dillon, Will Shipley. Giants have Tyrone Tracy, Devin Singletary, Cam Scatterbo. Cowboys have Javonte Williams, Miles Sanders, and Jaden Blue. And Commanders, Brian Johnson Jr., Austin Eckler, and Jeremy McNichols, just to fire through for the audio listeners. Aaron, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, so I know it's not necessarily the purpose of this episode, but we did these blind, and I have to say, Shane knows ball. I've got the Eagles 1, the Giants 2, the Commanders 3, and the Cowboys 4. So I think we all know the quality of Saquon Barkley and what he did, and I think he's coming be 28 this season, so he's still the right side of 30 for a running back. The biggest concern for Barkley is I think he had something like 490 touches, including the playoffs. Now, anytime you've seen a running back have that kind of work, the next season is always a struggle. Now, it doesn't seem you can't have another productive. You're not finished at that point. You can come back and have another really good season, but generally, you do see a kind of lag to that work. So, having said that, Barkley is a specimen, and we all knew his physical talent and all that kind of stuff. So maybe he'll be that. We saw how he came back from his ACL injury and the size of his legs and all those kind of things. So there's a chance that his, and I wouldn't bet against him. And, AJ Dillon and Will Shipley aren't terrible backup running backs. They've got some use. You watch Will Shipley put 2 touchdowns on us in a game because that's what Eagles backups do. I love our room. I think we've taken the opposite approach to the Eagles, and we've embraced the committee. I think the production we've had out of Tyrone Tracy was great out of a 5th round pick and a good upside swing in the draft. And where you see him good, he's that good sort of outside zone runner, get us into space. He also added a fair bit in the passing game as well. Everyone lauds his sort of former receiver status. I think he is a running back that was playing receiver. I don't think he's a receiver playing running back. I think maybe Scatterbo will be the better receiver out of the backfield. I wouldn't be surprised that we've seen what he can do in college, and I think will be some of his thing. What for Scatterbo to be on the field, he needs to make sure that he's that complete 3rd down package. So I think initially he'll be on in the short yardage, and he'll be the short yardage back. He'll obviously fight with Devon Singletary for that, but we saw how successful that went last year, and I think Cam Scatterboo could be our short yardage back. We know Tyrone Tracy probably isn't it. His run stuffs against heavy boxes were quite bad. His yardage drops against those kind of heavy backs. So I think we'll see Scatterboo be the short yardage guy. But if he can keep his pass protection there, he could also be the third down running back and take a lot of that work as well. And I think we'll see him be the true RB2 and Devon Singletary moved out. But to have a veteran in the room, I don't think he will still get work across the season, and maybe that will tail off towards the end of the season. But having that guy in the room, he's a sure blocker as well. So if you're going to be passing a lot and having him available, I think Commanders, I just don't see the upside to that room. It's solid. They had a kind of a decent running game, but a lot of their running was because they've got a mobile QB, and you kind of takes a defender out, so it's read options and those kind of things. So yardage wise, I think they'll be okay, and I think they've got, I loved Austin Eckler a few years ago, but he's past his best. But they don't have that upside that I think our room has, and I think that it's kind of the last piece you add when you're building an offense. So obviously they spent a lot on offensive line this year. I think they had to kind of just deal with what they've got at running back, and I think they themselves would see that as a place where they would like to upgrade. And the Cowboys, I think, are just in a mess. I think I know you've got. I did used to like Javonte Williams, and I've got him in a few leagues and different dynasty teams and that kind of thing. But his sort of his statistics last year behind what was a really high rated offensive line. He was sort of 45 out of 47 running backs in yards over expectation. He hit 15 miles an hour only on 10% of his carries. He was kind of terrible in yards per carries, tumbles on fumble per rush. He was stuffed quite a lot, and he was clearly the worst running back on the Broncos roster last year. So I don't think he's going to be the answer. Miles Sanders, there's not a lot of tread left. I wouldn't be surprised if Jaden Blue is leading the backfield in terms of share. He's definitely going to be the receiving back, and I think he can really help Dak out as that kind of check down receiver, and have a bit of dynamic to their game. But I don't think we're going to see a lot out of the Cowboys rushing attack, and they don't have the QB that's mobile to really generate that either. So that when a defense doesn't need to respect your rushing attack, that hurts your passing game. So that's why we saw them not close out the wins that they were doing in previous years last year. So I would say this is one of the worst groups in the league.
So we're only on the second positional group, and we have our first consensus top four, because I also have Eagles 1, Giants 2, Commanders 3, and Cowboys 4. As Shane's already mentioned, I mean, Saquon Barkley alone would be number one on this, even if everyone else had 4 running backs and the Eagles only had 1. That's just how good he is. But I actually really like the fact that they've picked up AJ Dillon to kind of lighten the load on Barkley and allow him to be a little fresher. He played 16 games last year, Barkley, regular season games, only the 3rd time in his career, and was used heavily as well. Obviously, he cracked 2,500, I think, across everything, if I remember correctly, across the postseason as well. So a lot of tread on the tyres from one season. Giants, number 2. I just think if you look at the 3 running back rooms outside of the Eagles, they're all less proven. I just feel like we have the advantage over the Commanders due to the fact that Tracy and Singletary, as Shane rightly said, bettered the production from Johnson Jr. and from Eckler. The 2 Commanders fell off in the postseason as well, so it's almost like teams started to figure them out. And I also believe that if we're looking at potentially putting Scatterboo in as a triple-headed attack or a dual-headed attack, I think his projection has to be higher than Jeremy McNichols. Commanders' average rushing total per game was 87 yards, and they didn't improve it. They haven't changed anything in their room. And it almost feels like the others have tried to evolve, but the Commanders have just gone, we've got Jaden Daniels here as our lead rusher, and the running backs are now a potential afterthought. I really liked Brian Johnson Jr. a few seasons ago. I just don't feel like he offered a lot last year. And then the Cowboys. I've got some stats written down that pretty much sum up why I don't like the Cowboys running back room. Javonte Williams, 513 yards in 17 games. Sanders, 11 games, 205 yards at Carolina. The only one that I really think could make a difference is Jaden Blue. He had 730 yards for Texas last year and probably will end up being potentially running back 2 before the season starts. If Williams can return to that pre-ACL form, I think it's a shrewd pickup. I just don't like it at the moment. They've got 3 running backs in there that just are a bit unproven for my liking. There's lots of chatter about this one, so I'll just quickly go through that before Shane.
The only thing I got from Craig's rankings is that say you love yourself a bit of BJJ.
Brian Johnson Jr. Yeah. Oh, good God! Can we not?
It's just like BTJ, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like BTJ, BJJ.
Obviously, me and BTJ are like that as well. After I got to ask him a question at Wembley last year. Anyway, Steve said the Commies go against above the Giants in the running back room. So we sent out a challenge and asked to see the whole ranking, and the people delivered. Steve has got Eagles, Commies, Giants, Cowboys. James, Eagles, Commanders, Giants, Cowgirls. Chris said that he has the Giants at 4, and not to underestimate the Cowboys, but I don't know how you can't underestimate them.
Check his latest comments.
And he's still putting them 4th. Okay, so Eagles, Giants, Commies, Cowboys. Oh, he thought you meant the whole division. Okay. We forgive you, Chris. It's fine. Holtzy's gone Eagles, Giants, Commanders, Cowboys. Darren has gone Eagles, Commanders, Giants, Cowboys. And that, I think, is all of them. So I think the consensus is that the Cowboys have the worst running back room. The Eagles are the best. And then, you flip-flop between the Giants and Commanders. I'm pretty sure that's almost a 50-50 split right there. James has also said the only concern from Giants' room point of view is Tracy tailed off towards the end of the season, hoping teams haven't worked him out. And Scatterboo, whilst we're all excited, could be a total bust. And that is always a projection that can happen. You never know. Aaron, I'll come to you first on this one. Steve asks, is it unreasonable to suggest that Singletary drops to running back 3 this year?
I think that is entirely down to how Scatterboo picks up blocking. And one of the biggest ways to keep yourself off the field as a running back is to not be able to be on the field in passing downs. And even when you're going to show pass, like if you want play action to work, that's generally how you get a really good big passing game. You have to be reliable to know that actually this guy they trust on a passing down and all these kind of things. So the one weakness that's on tape for Scatterboo is his pass protection, whether he picks up the right guy and then makes his effort's not a challenge, but his actual execution is where the biggest gap is. If he picks that up, I don't think there's any reason why he doesn't move ahead. And like I say, I think in short, he'll be held to a third down back type role, or being that guy that can be that goal line or fourth down, third and short, the guy that you hand it off to. But you can surprise teams with, we're actually going to pass it to him, and maybe he's even going to. I wouldn't be surprised. Dable always has a trick play I wouldn't be surprised if there's a Cam Scatterby pass in there at some point in the season, and maybe even a punt as well, because we all know he did that in college. But yeah, I think that's really where we see the potential. And obviously Devon Singletary's on the last year of his contract. He's there to be the veteran in the room, need some young guys in a young room and those kind of things. And I don't think there's any danger he doesn't make the roster and he doesn't see out the season or anything like that. He's a well-respected guy and but we saw last season a rookie take his job, and it was clear that Tyrone Tracy just had so much more. And it's not a guy that was a first-round rookie taking his job. It was a fifth-round rookie taking his job. And Cam Scatterby's coming out with probably more prestige than Tyrone Tracy, although obviously limited on the long speed. But Tyrone Tracy and Cam Scatterby as a kind of if you get the balance right on the right downs, I think you can see production that you would see out of a number one running back with those two combined. And why couldn't they both have 1,000-yard seasons down the line, not this year?
I don't know if you've seen, but apparently they have a nickname between the two of them, which is Salt and Pepper, and I'll let you all draw your own conclusions to that. I'm not making any further comments on that, of which one is Salt and which one is Pepper. However, Aaron, you are up first on wide receivers. So we have on the screen the top 4 wide receivers for each team, so the 3 starters and then the backup. So Giants is Neighbours, Slayton, Wandale and Hyatt. The Eagles have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Jahan Dotson, and Johnny Wilson. Cowboys, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Jalen Tolbert, and Kevontae Turpin. And then the Commanders, Scary Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, who they've picked up in a trade, Noah Brown, and Jalen Lane. So, Aaron, over to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. And I have here we go again, the Eagles at 1. And that's because I think AJ Brown and Devonta Smith are the number 2, 3, and 5 out of all of the receivers on the board there. So I think there's the top 2 are taking that with Jahan Dotson. I was surprised the Commanders let him go, but I think he's a good quality number 3. I then have the Cowboys as number 2. There's a bit of projection there in that we're going to see the best of George Pickens. I think CeeDee Lamb is a great receiver, does his best work in the slots, and needs an outside guy. Can work on the outside, but needs an outside guy to do it. I didn't think Jalen Tolbert was the answer. It had a fairly decent season, but if Jalen Tolbert's your number 3 and George Pickens, we see the best out of George Pickens. I think that's why I would have them as number 2. I have the Giants at 3, and I think we've got the number 1 receiver in the division. I think Malik Neighbours puts us definitely above the Commanders and challenging the Cowboys for the number 2 spot. I like what we've had out of Wandale. I don't think he's but he's a slot only guy, and he's going to be I think we mentioned it last week, or I think I had a chat with Bobby about it on his 24-hour stream, that he's a really difficult second contract guy, how to value him as a slot only guy that's been very productive out of the slot, but there isn't really a kind of league standard of what that's worth, and it's really interesting. Darius Slayton, I think, and Jalen Hyatt, I think both are the same, that when you pair them with Russell Wilson, we may see them get the recognition that they need in the league, because they're both guys that thrive on that deep threat. And we know Russell Wilson is maybe even the best QB in the league for downfield kind of accuracy, or downfield that kind of attempt, or that willingness to really push the ball down the field. And I think we'll see the best out of them. So as a 1, 2, 3, 4, I think the 4th position, I think our 4th guy on paper has the potential to be the best out of this group. And then I have the Commanders, who have got an unhappy Scary Terry at the moment. I presume they'll get the contract situation sorted out, and he'll be there. what was quoted to be a fat Deebo Samuel, who's again, he's an interesting receiver, slash he gets some of his work as a runner. So maybe that's where the Commanders are seeing some of their running effort to come from, and maybe that's what will boost their rushing attack. Noah Brown, who I've always liked, never seemed to have caught on anywhere, but he's had a couple of really spiked games in different places, and certainly in daily fantasy has helped me score some dollars by kind of being that kind of third guy, low value guy that can have a really big high spike week. But I just wouldn't take that room over ours.
Okay. I have the Eagles as number one. I mean, yeah, it does almost start to feel like that with the offense, and there is a reason behind that. But yeah, I have the Eagles as number one. I think the pickup of Dotson last year was quite shrewd. However, he had a bit of a down year on the on playing predominantly on the outside. His best game last year was against the Giants in week 18. So that kind of tells you everything that you need to know about how Jahan Dotson's season went. I have the Cowboys at 2, purely because of, again, the projection of Pickens. I also think that Kevontae Turpin is small, but he's quite dynamic. He's probably quite close to what Deebo was in a way. But obviously they have Mingo as well, a bit further down the depth chart, but he hasn't really produced yet. I actually have the Commanders at 3 and the Giants at 4. And the reason being is that I don't know what we're going to get with Deebo Samuel. There were issues with the 49ers last year. There have been issues this year with the 49ers at wide receiver, and they're not happy. And obviously they actually have quite a good trio last year. So I feel like he just was okay, but didn't really get the share last year. I know that he's had a couple of seasons of being lackluster, but I think if they somehow unlock the Deebo Samuel from 2021, he will make a difference to this Commanders team. Now, obviously, he's not going to get the target share that he had in 2021, where I think he was targeted like 115 times, but he is good, and on his day he can be a threat, not just as a receiver but as a runner as well. That I have flip-flopped these two, and one of the reasons is that McLaurin hasn't reported to camp, and Noah Brown was carted off during mini camp, and they still haven't released his injury designation. I know he had an MRI. That was about as much as I could find, so it's going to be interesting. And then, yeah, the Giants, I hate putting them last because I think that Neighbours is arguably one of, if not the best receiver in the division, but he's the only one that we could probably maybe consistently pin our hopes on and say, yes, he will produce this year. Slayton's been great for us, but his target share fell off with poor QB play, and you just wonder whether Neighbours taking the majority of snaps away from him, whether that affects him in concentration. Robinson is a catch monster in short routes and is elusive, but he lacks explosiveness after the catch from the slot position, and the tread is pretty high after last season. And Hyatt, we have a complete unknown because we really haven't used him. And outside of that, you go deeper into the abyss of the unknown. So I had to put them at 4. Shane, I feel like I'm being the pessimistic one here, Shane. Can you just try and sort this out, please?
So just to clarify then, so at quarterback, we had 2 out of 3 of us agree with the same. Running back, we had 3 out of 3 of us agree the same.
Yep.
Wide receiver, he's back to 2 of us agreeing the same. I've got Eagles 1, Cowboys 2. I've got the Giants at 4 and the Commanders at 3. I think 1 and 2 is easy.
Easy.
I mean, so far Eagles have been QB1, running back 1, wide receiver 1. There's a reason for that. You know, the defending Super Bowl champions. They've hardly lost any players, so that's going to come no surprise to anybody. In terms of the Cowboys, obviously the acquirement of George Pickens will, I think personally, bring out the best in CD Lamb. I think CD Lamb's needed somebody for quite a while to play opposite him in Dallas, and I think that they've got that now in George Pickens. And you know, for a fact, Adebo and I imagine it's going to be Banks are going to have the work covering both of them too. I mean, you imagine your number one's going to go up against CD Lamb, but it depends if the Giants decide to follow the number one or whether they just sort of play one constantly on the left, one constantly on the right. In terms of Giants and Commanders and Giants, for me, it was quite easy to put the Giants at 4 and the Commanders at 3. This was probably the first position that I locked in instantly. I think that McLaurin and Debo are better than Neighbours and Slayton. I think Terry McLaurin is one of the most underrated wide receivers in the league, personally. I think he doesn't get the recognition he deserves. I mean, you look at his stats since he's entered the league. He's had 6 seasons in the NFL. Only once has he ever gone for less than 1,000 yards, and that year he still put up 919, and that was in his rookie year. He had the most receiving yards of any wide receiver in the NFC East last year. He also had the most touchdowns by a considerable distance. He had 16. The next nearest was 9 with Devontae Smith. So for me, it's quite easy to put Terry McLaurin and the Commanders at number 3 when you think the acquisition of Deebo Samuel. And then, number 4, Giants, it's Malik Neighbours. And then kind of a bunch of guys, in all honesty. Like I said, Slayton, we've always said it, he's a great number 2. But if you look at the other teams, the Eagles have got Smith and AJ Brown. Both of those could be wide receiver 1s. Dallas, Lamb and Pickens. Would it be outrageous for Pickens to be a wide receiver 1? Not really. And then I even think Deebo Samuel, he's dropping off. He's had a few injuries. He's a bit more of a gadget type player. But if he was a team's number 1 go-to, I think he could still put up the yards. Whereas I think if Slayton was a team's number 1, as we've seen with the Giants, he doesn't get much more than 600-700 yards, and that's not going to be good enough to be a wide receiver 1 for me. So that's why I had the Commanders at 3 and then the Giants at 4.
Yeah, I think the Slayton, we'll see the real Slayton this season, and I think we were all surprised when he signed back with us, and we've all said that he could go somewhere else and be a solid number 2 receiver anywhere else in the league. And I think it's that downfield passing where I think he suffered a 18% inaccurate target, and it's just not Daniel Jones's game. And I think but it is Russell Wilson's game. That's what Russell Wilson does. That's what Dable wants us to do, is be more aggressive down the field. And I wouldn't be surprised to see, the 140 targets for Wan'Dale Robinson to come right down, and Darius Slayton's targets to go over 100 when he was around the 70 last year. And I really think that's we'll see him have some kind of progression. I think he was 13% of the team targets. I'd expect to see that more like 15, 16%. Wan'Dale, I think his stat was he averaged 7.5 yards per catch, which is the fewest by any receiver to have had 90 catches in a season. And that was a product of Daniel Jones not being trusted to throw the ball down the field, or not wanting to hold the ball in the pocket. We gave him easy reads to get the ball to Tyrone Tracy because he was our 4th receiver on the team last year. But to Wan'Dale in the slot, Wan'Dale was as tough as nails. He's a small guy. You don't see him kind of miss games and take some big hits in the middle and all that kind of production. So I really do like him. I'd like to see his average depth of target to be moved downfield, and hopefully that's something that Russ does and we see some more out of him. But I just think we haven't seen the best of Slayton because he's been with Daniel Jones his entire career. And I think that's where we'll see that difference. And going to Terry McLaurin, and I guess I'm fighting the corner for Giants being 3. Terry McLaurin is the 4th best receiver in this division, and that's not a knock, because if he was in the AFC East, he'd be the number 1 receiver in the AFC East. We have 3 of the top 8 receivers, 3 of the top 5 receivers, 10 receivers, however you want to call it, in this division, and I think he is the 4th of maybe the top 6 in the NFL.
That is fair enough. There's a question from Chris, but I'm going to leave it until the end. So Steve has said Eagles, the rest are 2A, 2B, 2C. Chris has also said Eagles, Cowboys, Giants, and Commies. And then James put up one earlier, but then realised that Pickens had gone to the Cowboys, so redid his. And I said Eagles, Cowgirls / Commanders, and then the Giants at the bottom there. We've all got the Giants ranked in the lower part of this, but that's not us saying there's a golfing class there. I think it's just that we're looking at everybody there between them. We're now going on to the one that, and I don't know about you boys, I'd be interested to get your thoughts, but I found this the most difficult out of all of them, tight end. I just didn't feel like I was comfortable, and I've changed it around quite a lot, and I still don't know if I'm overly happy with it. But we'll move on. So just for the audio listeners, you've got the Giants, Theo Johnson, Chris Manhertz, Daniel Bellinger. They also do have Thomas Fedone, who is not on the graphic on the screen, but we will also talk about him, I'm sure. Eagles, Dallas Goedert, Grant Calcaterra, Kylan Granson, Cowboys, Jake Ferguson, Luke Schoonmaker, and Brevin Spann-Ford, one of the greatest names on here. The Commanders, Zach Ertz, John Bates, which is the most British name I've heard so far this evening, and one of Shane's boys in Ben Sinnott, who not this year but last year was one of his guys, who of course went to the Commanders, which made him awfully happy. Yeah, I found this so tough, and I keep flicking because I feel like there's only 2 teams who have a bona fide tight end 1, and then the others are a little bit committee, if that makes sense. I've actually got Commanders at number 1 here. And the reason is Zach Ertz. He's 34. He's still a good blocker. He still led all of the tight ends on this list in receiving yards last year. And he's a safety blanket. And I just feel like that puts him above. But I also feel like, though their depth is a little concerning versus the others, if Ben Sinnott had a breakout year, and it's not outside the realms of possibility, he has the intangibles to do it. They've then got the succession plan behind Zach Ertz. Then I've got the Eagles because Dallas Goedert, his production has slowed in the last 2 years, but again, he's a player who can block and catch. He missed time last year because of injury, and Calcaterra came in. He was serviceable. He's not the long-term answer. I don't really think they have a long-term answer there, and Goedert's only got a 1-year deal, I believe, so that could all change next year, but yeah, we've got that there. I then got the Cowboys, Jake Ferguson, Shoemaker, are kind of a bit of a 1-2 punch there. But apparently Spann-Ford from Minnesota, he's a UDFA from this year. Apparently he's flashed in camp, and they think he could overtake Shoemaker. So they've got very much a committee there. And I've got the Giants in 4th. Now, Theo Johnson had an okay rookie season. He had some seam gains, but I think he averaged like 1 yard a catch or something stupid because he just couldn't do anything in the flat. And obviously he finished the season injured, so we weren't really sure what's going on there. Bellinger hasn't returned to his rookie season form. Manhertz is a situational blocker. He's a very, very good situational blocker, but he doesn't offer a lot in the passing game. It says a lot when he equaled his career touchdown count this past season with 1, and he's like a 10-year plus vet. I do think if Fedone can form a good 1-2 punch with Johnson, we'll be higher. But obviously, we're looking at projection with that. So that's how I've got it. I've got Commanders, Eagles, Cowboys, Giants. Shane, how have you ranked this one?
What have you got? Sorry, Commanders,
Eagles, Cowboys, Giants.
Okay, well, I've got none. Exactly the same as you. 4 completely different ones. So at number 1, I've gone with Philadelphia Eagles. Like I said, painful as it says, they're the best team in the National Football League at the minute. They're Super Bowl champions. So I've gone with them at number 1, obviously with Dallas Goddard. Number 2, I've gone for the Cowboys and kind of their tight end one in Jake Ferguson. 3, I've gone for the Giants, and at 4, I've got the Commanders. And the reason I've got Washington at 4 is there's a few things I don't like with Zach Ertz. I don't like his age. Nothing against guys who are turning 35, still relatively young, in my opinion. Anything over 35 is getting on a little bit. I'll openly admit that. But yeah, I think for me, with Zach Ertz, it's age plus injuries are a concerning factor for me. And that's why I've kind of put them at number 4. And like you say, John Bates, Ben Sinnott have kind of not really done very much. John Bates had 115 yards last year. Ben Sinnott just went over 50 with 51 yards. So it's kind of, there's not real much depth there. Theo Johnson, I've liked the potential he's kind of shown. And I think I'm hoping we can kind of see a bit more of Daniel Bellinger, what we've seen in his rookie season. And I know we've kind of said that for the last couple of years now, but I'm going to carry on banging that drum until he kind of repays the faith that we've shown him, so to speak. But yeah, I've got Eagles 1, Cowboys 2, Giants 3, and Commanders 4. Aaron?
Yeah, so I think we're not aligned at all, and that's not a surprise at this position, given how difficult it was. I kind of wanted to just give every team 3, because I don't think any of the rooms are particularly stand out, and and some of that is if you've got more than one tight end one, you've got no tight end one. Kind of, there's not necessarily the standout. I did go Eagles 1 and Commanders 2. I quite like Ben Sinnott as well when he was coming out, and I think he can, he could be as decent. And Zach Ertz at his peak was one of the top tight ends in the league. He showed some flashes with that, but he's a 3-down tight end. Maybe he's there and more as a safety blanket for their young QB, and also who might like to run a little bit. I then have the Cowboys at 3, and the Giants at 4. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Theo Johnson has a breakout season at the end. If we ranked this at the end of the season, we'd say, well, we'd have the Giants as the number 1 room here. But I think there's just a lot of confusion about who will even make the roster in our tight end room. If you look at Bellinger's a cut candidate because the salary he's on, and obviously Fedone's a bit of a wild card who's not on the screen, but obviously in that kind of room. There's Greg Dolch as well is another guy in the room that's potentially could make the roster and change those kind of things up and everything else. So I think it's one of those. For me, I think it's hard to put us above the bottom of this, but like I say, I kind of wanted to give all teams a 3, and kind of went, well, none of these rooms would be standout in the league.
Sorry, Aaron, just clarify for me, what was your top 4 there? Because I think I missed the top 2.
So Eagles 1, Commanders 2, Cowboys 3, and Giants 4.
Okay, so yeah, we none of us can agree on this one, and I think that's pretty much exactly what we're kind of saying, is that with this and you put it perfectly in the fact that there's no standout run, and I don't really think there's a standout player either. I think Goddard and Zach Ertz are both on the wrong side of Father Time. Jake Ferguson is okay, but he's not like the old Dallas tight ends were, and we're just a bit unproven. I mean, if you look at the other the comments, you've got James who says Philly, Commanders, Cowboys, Giants, and I think the Giants in this category are way back for him. And then Chris is saying Philly, Commies, Cowshits, and Giants. So very, very similar to us. I do think it's kind of a bit fragmented there. Shane, O-line time for you. I'll read them out so you've got time to prepare your notes and get yourself ready. Oh, there's a 1 second. Yes.
Fuming! Fucking fuming!
Is that just going to play the entire time? Oh, I could barely hear that. I was just like, what?
I've been stitched up here. This is an absolute outcry. It's an outrage. It's a disgrace. Like, my notice is so close to giving in here because I just think, I swear to God, I get stitched up for the O-line every time we talk about it.
I'm pretty sure it's all Kev's fault. We had to move some stuff around because Kev was unavailable, and
Does Kev produce?
He produces he produces every time he's on this pod.
It's not Kev's fault that you gave me the O-line. You could have rejigged it around and done something, but no, here I am being shafted once again with the O-line. No offense to O-line, but why?
So, as a reminder for the audio listeners, you have Giants who have, and we're going from left tackle, left guard, centre, right guard, right tackle, left and right. Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Schmidt, Greg Van Roten, and Jermaine Illuminor. Now, these are all the starting fives from the R-Lads depth charts, so it could change slightly, but this is what it is at the moment. Eagles, Jordan Mailata, Landon Dickerson, Cam Jurgens, Tyler Steen, and Lane Johnson. Cowboys have Tyler Guyton, Tyler Smith, Cooper Beebe, that's right, another Tyler in Tyler Booker, and Terrence Steele. And then the Commanders have Laramie Tunsil, who they traded for Brandon Coleman. What is that surname? Tyler. Go on.
Tyler Biadish.
There we go. Tyler Biadish, Sam Cosme, and Andrew Wiley. Shane, what is your ranking? This is where I'm fully expecting Shane to go 1, 2, 3, 4 onto you.
You know me too well. Does it really matter? I mean, thanks for tuning in. We're back this time next week. 5 stars. Anything to add? Outro. So I've got the Eagles at number 1. They've been number 1 for me throughout all these rankings. I've already said why, really. Number 2, I've gone for the Commanders. I think the addition of Laramie Tunsil, whilst he's kind of getting older now, obviously acquired him from Houston, I think that's going to be a big addition to their team already. I think if you look at the offensive line rankings, last year they were second for the best run blocking. I don't know where they're ranked in pass blocking, but they were also 5th for the best win block percentage of offensive lines as well. So I think that's a really smart addition by Washington, to be honest. Number 3, I've gone for Dallas. And then at number 4, I've gone for the Giants. And kind of one of the main reasons is that your best offensive lineman potentially can't stay fit. And that's kind of always going to be a bit of an issue for me. If you can't stay on the field, I can't really afford to have you ranked that high. John Runyon, we signed in free agency. He's not done bad, but he's not done anything where you kind of laud him or rave about him or think he's an outstanding job. JMS, it's pretty much, I feel like we've said this about a few players, especially over the last few weeks with the positional breakdowns, but JMS, it's a bit of a make or break season for him. This is where we find it if we have got our centre or if it's a position that we've got to address next year in free agency or the draft. Greg Van Roten, is he what, 30, 33, I think 34, and was one of the better offensive linemen on our unit last year, and that's a compliment to him, but that's not something you should be saying about a guy that you acquired so late on in free agency at his age. And then Jermaine Illuminor was a bit of a shrewd signing last year, and kind of you're hoping that you can keep him. But, like I say, if Andrew Thomas doesn't stay fit, your two best players are players who are on essentially one-year deals at the moment in Greg Van Roten and Jermaine Illuminor. Eagles, for me, it's a clear number one. Like I say, that Super Bowl champions, they just don't seem to lose talent. And when they do lose talent, they either shaft other GMs with a trade that you're thinking, what in the Madden is that? Or they draft somebody who's got all sorts of character concerns and injury concerns, gets drafted by them and plays all bloody 17 games, which no one saw coming. It's just, they just seem to not lose, and then when they're doing, they replace them. They're just replacing stud after stud. And then the Cowboys, I think there could be an argument for the Cowboys and the Giants to maybe flip flop 3 and 4. There's a couple of players that are kind of like there. I know Aaron wasn't a massive Tyler Booker fan going into the draft. I know he didn't have him in his top 5 or anything. I didn't mind him. And I was also a bit of a Cooper Beebe guy last year. I think he might have been one of my guys as well. Then as well. So yeah, Eagles 1, Commies 2, Cowboys 3, Giants 4 for me.
And Shane, I think James hit this in the chat, but if I want to give you an alternative lineup, what about if it was Andrew Thomas, John Runyon, John Michael Smith, Evan Neal, and Jermaine Illuminor? Does that move the needle for you?
Yeah, Giants are 5.
Is number 4 just nobody, a 0 O-line?
Number 4 is us 3, Dan and Kev.
I tell you, that's a very quick tangent before Aaron goes on.
Tangent train's back.
Who plays what position there, Shane?
I think I'm fucked. I'm not very tall. I'm not very wide. I'd be wrecked. I like the idea of Mayo being a centre, knows his shit. It decides when the ball gets snapped, shouts at us, telling us where the fuck we need to be, what stunts we need to be doing. I might go for probably Kevin Dan as the guards. And then me as the tackles.
And you're throwing me at the deep end at left tackle, yeah?
He's having Myles Garrett.
Well, I'm left-footed. I don't know if that means anything. So I don't mind being left tackle. Yeah. That's my drafting for drafting O-lineman. Are you left-footed? Yeah, you're on the left side, then done. Simple. But I still think that either me or you, right tackle, does better than Evan Neal did in 3-4 years, whatever it's been.
Aaron, what do you make? Would you make any adjustments to that offensive line?
I mean, you'd put the only offensive lineman you've got at the most important position. So I'd put, albeit I'm not a prototypical left tackle. I'm looking after the quarterback and putting myself at left tackle. And I think I put Craig at right tackle. I think the 2 guards, I think we'll keep Dan and Kevin at guard. But Shane, I think you could be centre. I think you could go up against Dex. I think you've got
great mad. I'd walk up to that field, look in front of me like, nah.
And the quarterback will be able to see over you.
Yeah, because I'm going to be on the floor 6 feet under.
All I can think of is the meme with all the guys carrying the coffin, having a little dance. Like that's what happens to Shane.
I'd literally just be like, I ain't snapping the ball. No chance.
You've got leverage on a lot of these guys, so you'll get under the pad level.
I'll be under the pad level, so they'll be throwing me down and stomping on me.
Lowest man wins.
I'd literally just pick the ball up and be like, "No, I'm going home," and I'd walk off the field with the ball. You can't play now. You ain't got a centre and you ain't got a ball.
sounds like playing football on the field after school. It's like, no, it's my ball. I'm going home. See you later. Anyway, Aaron, your ranking.
Yeah, shall we get the Simpsons meme up? Say the line. Eagles 1. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, Eagles number 1. And I think if you said versus the entire NFL, you'd put Eagles at 1, right? So I think there's a good argument. This is the number 1 line in the league. Obviously, they did the kind of recycle project on the kind of tackle to guard last year, and have lost that guard. So the right guard position now is kind of the only question mark. And I say that, and I think you're not going to be worried about that not being a top 5 line in the league. And then everyone else, I think there are significant question marks. You could argue the Commanders line is, similar to the Giants in the fact that they've got a left tackle position sorted, and the rest of it, they've seen flashes, but maybe not at the level that you would like. I think that again, Jaden Daniels was like the 3rd most pressured QB in the league, and obviously with his skill set and elusiveness, he was able to do stuff with it. But if you put Dak Prescott behind that Commanders line, I think you would say that actually that's the worst one of the 4. So I have the Commanders at 4, and despite having a Laramie Tunsil in there, and then I actually have the Cowboys at 2, but again, I think there's some questions over that line. They've spent a lot of high-level draft picks, obviously with another Tyler in there. Maybe they need 2 more Tylers and just call it the Tyler line rather than the offensive line. But again, I think there's question marks over the quality of that line, and when you've got the most expensive quarterback in the league, and we haven't really factored in value for money into the kind of rankings here, but obviously I think there's some risk behind that line, but I do have it ahead of the Giants, and then I have us at 3 with the kind of the view that I know this is potentially the same starting 5 as we had at the beginning of last season, but I don't think our starting 5 we were that unhappy with some of the performance. Obviously, game 1 against the Vikings, against that defense and that defensive scheme, we all knew there was going to be trouble. But I say sacks are a QB stat, not an offensive lineman stat. Obviously, if you're a turnstile like we've seen from Evan Neal, you can blame the offensive lineman. But it's down to the QB to help set the protection, to know whether to check out of a play, to make sure he hits his hot read or those kind of things. And some of our sacks and some of our poor performance was we had a rabbit in the headlights behind the line. So. And obviously on the running game, there was some good efficiency there, and again the hope for Evan Neal if he does come into this lineup at guard at any point, is we get some of those explosive run plays that we did see from the Eagles and their kind of tackle to right guard convert last season. So I actually have us at 3 here, but 2, 3, and 4, again, you could just give them all 3s, and I wouldn't argue with it.
So mine is the same as Shane's. I have the Eagles at 1, Commanders at 2, Cowboys at 3, and Giants at 4. I don't really need to say anything about the Eagles. They are number 1. The only risk you've got there maybe is that if Lane Johnson, who is aging, if he gets injured and you're having to put another person at right tackle next to Tyler Steen, who is apparently going to be replacing Becton, who had a 39.5 pass blocking grade across last season. There could be issues on the right, but outside of that, they are the best O-line in the league for a reason. I think the pickup of Tunsil has kind of just pushed the Commanders into that second spot and just maybe pushes them away from the pack a little bit. They have a younger... It's weird. They have a vet left tackle, young left guard, semi-veteran centre, young right guard, and then a vet at right tackle. So you're just hoping that those two bookends can keep them going and kind of teach the two guards. So I think that's quite a shrewd pickup there in Tunsil. The Cowboys I have at third, but I do think you could rotate the Cowboys and Giants quite easily. They have a very young line. They have a rookie in Tyler Booker. Cooper Beebe and Tyler Guyton are both second-year players, so there could be a little bit of a sophomore slump there. They all have high traits, but it kind of lacks a bit of cohesion. I think it's high risk, high reward, kind of the Cowboys line. It could go well, it could go badly. And for us, it's all about the injuries. That's why I have them ranked at 4. Thomas on his day is the best defensive lineman in the division, hands down, but he's missed 18 games in 2 seasons. JMS has missed time in his 2 seasons, or in the last 2 seasons. Runyon missed time last season, despite the fact he hadn't missed a snap before that. Illuminor has proven pedigree and versatility, which is probably the biggest plus, but that right guard spot, I'm not convinced is Greg Van Roten's. I think you're going to see him, you're going to see Stinney, you're going to see Kubas, and you're going to see Neal all battle for that across the off seasons as it continues through. So training camp is going to be very, very interesting. James has got his in Philly, Cowgirls, Giants, Commanders, which is sort of very similar to yours, I think, Mayo. But
yeah.
Caveat there assumes a healthy O-line all season, and that's one thing that we always say, don't we? We'd like to have a healthy O-line. It'd be nice to have a healthy O-line. And when we did at the beginning of the last season, it did go well. Like we weren't amazing, but we were serviceable, absolutely serviceable. It's just the second that Andrew Thomas's injury history reared its head yet again, and we lost him, it then started to go downhill. So it's going to be interesting. I think the general takeaway that you can take from this is that the Eagles' offense is legit, and that we all are pretty much in agreement about that. Obviously, Shane had them ranked as number 1 across the board. Aaron, you did as well, I think, in all 5. And the only one that I didn't have them in was tight end, but that was very easily interchangeable between them and the Commanders with Zach Ertz. So they are the team to beat, and we need to beat them in a meaningful game, something we haven't done in a very long time, and that's going to be the proof in the pudding. However, unfortunately, that is all the time we have for this week. We will be back on Wednesday, and as an added bonus, it's us 3 who are also back next Wednesday to do the exact same exercise, but looking at the defense, which I think will be a lot more random than the offense was. I think there might be a few little surprises in there. So that will be good. Anything to add before we disappear?
Just good getting back on with you guys. I don't remember when my last episode was. I think it might have been the Edge group positional breakdowns, but obviously I've been listening to the episodes you guys have been doing, and it's been top work, really informative. I've kind of been on a bit of a hiatus, so to speak, over the last couple of months with like work and a few issues going on in personal life, and obviously being out the country and that. So I was listening to the last week's episode today on the way into work, and I thought you guys ran it off really well, and kind of getting close to the season started, and trying not to let that optimism, if that's the right word, get to you. You start thinking, listening to these positional breakdowns you guys have been doing, you start thinking, shit, we could have a bit of a team here, especially on defense. And we've had them feelings before in the past. So, try to keep it in check, but the content's still coming.
Yeah, I think the first game of the season's 50 days away, so we're getting closer. We're looking forward. I've still got this big draft season, so it's the JTT Cup draft that kicks off this weekend. So looking forward to that. It's a great format because it's best ball. So the only event that you have as a team manager is the draft, and then it's sit back and hope it does all right because the lineup picks itself by the players that score the most get into your lineup. So it is the season in one day, as it were, for the manager, and then just watch and see what happens. So enjoying all of that, trying to consume all the content on fantasy football until the training camp starts, and then if you want an account to look at around training camp, look up the Coach Speak Index on Twitter, and the guy diagnoses what the coaches are really saying in their press conferences and what that means for positional values and who lies and who tells the truth. So that's a really fun follow on X, and I think he's doing some YouTube content now as well.
Absolutely, give them a follow. I am also in a JTT Cup league this year, and yes, as Aaron is saying, there is a draft on Saturday, so I will be looking forward to that. As always, remember to like this video, subscribe to us on YouTube. We've had a bit of a bumper crowd today from X, thanks to a little retweet from Bobby and the Giants Nation show, because I am repping the Dark Side shirt that is currently on their website. So if you aren't already, make sure you do subscribe to us on YouTube. You can also hit the bell to be notified of when we are live, and if you aren't already, follow us in the socials at the bottom. And finally, please do rate us on your podcast platform of choice. 5 stars, of course. My thanks go to Shane and to Aaron for joining me tonight, plus all of you watching or listening. We are signing off until next Wednesday. Let's go Giants.